Think about being in the classroom as a child. Think about sitting there as you stare at the caterpillars trapped in those plastic cups with holes poked in the top so they can breathe. Now think to science classes in high school. Think of sitting in those rows and columns of desks, your friends next to you sleeping, while the teacher at the front goes through slide after slide telling you what the answers are to the wonders of the world, like atoms or the human body. Think of how much you actually learned and if you had any fun or not. As a high school junior, I took chemistry, getting the lowest grade I have ever gotten in a class. This class consisted of the teacher at the front, the students set in rows, and being forced to sit there for 45 minutes. I don't think I learned one thing in this class besides how to zone out the teacher and how to not fall asleep for 45 minutes. Having to sit and be lectured at taught me nothing and affected my overall GPA that I had worked so hard to keep up. This class did not teach me how to be a scientist and how to learn on my own. It taught me how to follow directions and just believe anything the professor says. If this class worked the same way that 182 worked, I most likely would have understood the information better and gotten a good grade in the class. To this day, I still don't understand chemistry. Like, what even is this? This shows that this class did not affect my life, besides for the worst. What I realized during my own schooling and my further education is that schools do not teach kids how to think for themselves. They teach kids how to memorize and spit back that information. To think like a scientist, kids need to do experiments on their own without already knowing the outcome. Sure, kids do predict and try and figure it out before the experiment is done. What truly matters is after the experiment has been finished. Children just get the answers at the end of lab experiments and are given the reasons why the raisins danced in the soda cans, or why the can collapsed when going from hot to cold water. Kids should be doing more experiments to figure out the reasons. I feel that science classes should mostly be led by the students' desire to learn, and the teachers should be there when students have questions and to supervise the work. I'm not saying that the teacher should basically be irrelevant. Then I would be out of a job. But I'm saying that when it comes to lab time, the kids should be guiding their own studies and knowledge they find. This leads into my main point that kids don't know what science is and is not. Through this, I have realized how much science has not affected children's thinking processes, and kids do not know how to come up with their own knowledge. Back to the chemistry science class in high school. None of the kids could have said what science can be classified as and what it cannot be. Science is not absolute, it's not certain, it's not democratic. Science can be controversial, like how science can be based on belief or decided by faith. This is where things become difficult, especially in public schools, because people can argue that science is based on religion, depending on their views. So people should be careful around this when they teach. However, science is flexible, measurable, based on proof, testable, rigid, and verifiable, depending on the situation or study. Another issue arises when science is biased. This is one more thing that can become an issue, especially in schools. Science is biased because on certain things like beliefs or even when talking about human anatomy. Once kids reach that certain age where they get to watch that lovely video that makes everyone uncomfortable, they don't even realize what they are learning is true science. They just think of it as an uncomfortable situation they want to get out of but can't. This is where kids should really be learning, and not focusing on the fact that their parents don't actually want them to watch this video. Kids need to begin to experiment and learn on their own. They need to learn that science is all around them and not just in one area or the other. It is their entire world if they can only see. I have never once realized how messed up science is in schools nowadays. Kids really aren't doing the learning themselves. They are told the answers and taught to repeat it, and in this process there is no sense of the child actually understanding why certain things do occur. Something I am going to take away from EDT 182 is that when I become a teacher, my classes will not be about me spitting out answers and hoping the kids memorize it for the exam. It will be about the kids doing their own learning. We will set up plants, and the kids will watch them grow and figure out how photosynthesis occurs on their own. We will see if we can make an egg float or shrink through a plastic bottle. We will set up fake volcanoes and watch it explode as we all figure out why this occurred and why this reaction happened. We will go outside into nature and experience the real world and connect the classroom to the outside. The science I teach my students will guide them into the way we learn things in 182. My biggest stressor will be making my students see that science is not just in the classroom, but it is also in the outside world. Science is everywhere around them, and they should be curious. I will teach my students how to wonder and be curious. My students will need to be a scientist on their own by studying, experimenting, observing, and analyzing to find results to understand. I'm going to take away so much from 182. I am taking away the curiosity, wonder, thought, and inquisitiveness that we have learned throughout this semester. I am going to take away that it is so good to keep the students guessing like we did with the Fin Wizard. It gives them a chance to reflect and try and resolve it on their own. It also gives me, as the teacher, insight to which kids actually care and which kids don't. I'm going to take away things I never did from that chemistry class back in high school, like actually learning the information and not just spitting it back out onto the exam. Advice I can give to the future 182 students is for them to keep an open mind and actually take everything into account and really try to see the other side of things.